Morton, second.
Thank you. Any questions on this one? It looks pretty straightforward, but I'm sure Nancy or Nina can answer any questions you have. Seeing none, ready to vote, we'll do the roll call. Commissioner Herbert, how do you vote?
Herbert, aye.
Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, aye.
Chairman Webb votes aye. That passed unanimously. Thank you. Now we're up to the budget. I think you got the information that was sent out by Jamie. We have some corrections to the general debt service and rural debt service. And the first thing is, there are some line items in here that Nina will go over. And so unless I'm wrong on this, Jeff, are we going to take this as a correction or as an amendment?
In terms of the changes to the debt service,
Yes.
because they're dollar amount changes, I believe you need to take them as an amendment.
Okay, and then the second question on that is it's various line items. Do we change it as amendment as a whole after Nina explains it, or go to each of the line items where the changes are made?
I would amend as a whole, and then if any member of the committee wants to pull one out separately to discuss, you could do that.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so Budget Committee, before you is a revised general debt service fund, and the revised number is $47,940,100. This is a change from $46,750,100. I need a motion to approve this amendment.
Motion to approve the amendment.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Morton, second.
Second. Before we have discussion, Jeff, let me go back. Is this amendment or correction? How's the minutes going to reflect this?
I would reflect it as go ahead.
So what this was, is we kind of burned the biscuits, as the mayor said. It was just a principal and interest payment that was left off from the last refunding bond. And when we discovered that, we just added that in there. So it's just a correction, really.
Okay. And I see that. And I just want to get with Jeff, for the minute purposes, do we call that we are amending this or that we are correcting this? What's the proper language?
Well, I think you're amending it because you've got a substantive change. If it was an error of addition or transposition of numbers or whatever, it would be a correction. Because we're adding a substantial number, I think we have to amend it.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Nina, do you have anything else to add to this one on the general debt service?
No, sir.
Okay, does anyone on the committee have questions?
Yeah, Paul, I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right document. This is Barb Sturgeon. And
Yes.
I went because I took my documents off the website, whatever was posted on the website. So the total is 81,880,100. Is that the correct amount or the amount before we amend it?
The amount that we approved the other day was $46,750,100. The revised amount is $47,940,100. That's what was sent out today.
What line item are we on?
This is line item 99300.
I think Barbara's looking at the total debt, not just we're just voting on the general. Barbara was looking at the debt for the general and the rural. It's where she got the 81 million.
Thank you, Commissioner Herbert.
And
That's correct.
The two reports, I just reran the reports for those two funds. So it will show the total for both of those funds, but we do need to vote on them separately.
Correct.
That's a good question, Commissioner Sturgeon. Thank you, Commissioner Herbert, for pointing that out. Did that answer your question, Commissioner Sturgeon? There we go.
Okay, so then
You're breaking up, Commissioner Sturgeon.
well, you said the number really quickly. So now I'm thinking what we're voting on is 14,467,000. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
I can't, no.
Oh.
No, we're on page, what was sent out today or yesterday.
It's
Let's
gonna
see.
be a,
Page 3 of 5.
do I have to call in again?
You may, if you can't hear me, you may have to call in. Can you hear me now? I believe, because you're breaking up and the numbers are breaking up, Commissioner Sturgeon, you might want to call in.
I'm gonna call in.
Yes, yes. Good idea. That's correct, Commissioner Morton. Page 3 of 5. We'll wait for Commissioner Sturgeon to call in. Any other questions while we're waiting for Commissioner Sturgeon to reconnect? Just a second. Looks like she's about in. Are you back in, Commissioner Sturgeon?
Can you all hear me?
There we go. Thank you. Yes. You will need to mute when you're not talking, Commissioner Sturgeon. So, have you found page 3 of 5, which shows the number we're voting on is $47,940,100.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Thank
Do you
you.
have any further questions on the general debt service?
Nope. That's it, Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else have any questions? Just to be clear, we're amending this number from what we approved earlier. Current number, $47,940,100. Ready to vote? All those in favor of the general debt service fund, all $47,940,100, signify by saying aye. If not, signify by saying no. Commissioner Herbert, how do you vote?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, aye.
Commissioner Webb votes aye, passes unanimously. Next one up is the Rural Debt Service Fund. This is page 4 and 5 of the 5 that was sent out yesterday. And this is revised number of $33,940,000 even. Do I have a motion for approval of the amendment?
Herbert, motion to approve the amendment.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Sturgeon, second.
Thank you. Nina, you want to tell us the changes in this one? Okay, have I lost Nina? We may have. All right. On page 4 of the items, you'll see the account number 82,130 is 19,125,000. This was 17,775,000. Same page, falling down, 82230 was 14,103,000 is now 14,150,000. Those are the changes. I think the explanation is the same as Nina gave you earlier, just as a correction from the addition on the staff. Do we have any more questions? Maybe Mr. Mosley or Mayor Anderson can answer since we seem to have lost Nina.
No, she's back.
There she is. Anybody have any questions of Nina? Okay, this is on the rural debt service, 33,940,000 even. Are we ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor of the rural debts, go ahead. Somebody say something. Okay, all those in favor of the rural debt service fund amended to 33,940,000. signify by saying aye. Those against by saying no. Commissioner Herbert, how do you vote?
Herbert, I.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton?
Morton, I.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon?
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson?
Anderson, I.
Chair votes aye, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next one up is we're going to go through the capital projects. And I think Nina and the mayor want to go through that. Is that right, Nina?
We can. These are the projects that each of the mayor's departments and elected officials turn in for their 2021 capital request. We have gone through these. We initially got the number down to 62,000, which was prior 62 million, excuse me, a little over 62 million, which were priority 1 and 2 projects from those departments. So the mayor, myself, and Diane went through these and got it down to the amount that you're looking at now. I've talked to each department. And these are the projects that we are requesting to be funded. Some of them are projects that were funded out of, or to be funded out of the governor's grant. Some can be funded out of privilege tax, bond funds. There are some funds that are currently available in accounts where projects came in under bid. So there were some funds left over in some of those lines that we would be able to use. And then the projects that we could fund out of fund balance.
Okay, thank you. Anyone on the committee have a question for Nina?
I'm Sturgeon, Commissioner Sturgeon has a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Sturgeon.
I'm looking at a document that says county capital request. Is that the document we're talking about?
Yes.
I don't, all right, so when I look at the grand total on the last page, page 5, I'm not really sure what I'm seeing because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns and they're not added up.
Nina, that's about 34 million. Do you have the total of those? You don't have those total? Okay, I just did in round numbers. That is about 34 million. And I think Nina's looking at the computer now. It looks to me like they've taken the roughly 67 million and reduced this down to about 34 million.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mayor.
let me see if Juanita's adding it up for you all. So Commissioner, your question, there's 5 columns: grant, privilege tax, bond, available funds, and fund balance. The grant, before the legislators ended the session on the Hill, they appropriated monies for all cities and counties throughout the state of Tennessee. Our amount of money to $1.2 million, as you will see, out of the grant funds. Christy Ransom has been working for us behind the scenes. Actually, she was wrapping it up today to send up to the legislators for their approval. And so these grant funds, that's one set of money that does not require us paying it back or borrowing. The privilege tax, I won't go into a great deal on that. That's the amount of money we receive all from people as they build homes or in our community for various reasons. And that figure is approximately 810,000. The bond amount is the amount that Nina feels like the 27,135,000 is the amount of money that we will be going to borrow later in the year. Available funds is $1 million. That means we've got those funds. We feel like we can squeeze out of some projects that came in a little bit under or over, and then your fund balance left on that. So really what we're looking at here is not the first column, the second, nor the second column. It's that bonded amount of 27 million. I hope that explains it. Does that help you out,
Yeah,
Nancy?
thank you very much, Mayor. That helps a lot.
And what Paul and Nina have said, when we first started this journey, it was around 62 million or whatever. Could have been more, and we've just trimmed it down to what we absolutely need to either finish the project up on or absolute need. And we're hoping the legislators leave that money in when they go back into session. There's some movement in Washington currently on the third stimulus package they're putting together would be to try to have some more money for local, will come through Washington down to Nashville that would be directly related back out to cities and counties throughout our 95 counties. And I don't know how many cities we've got, maybe Paul does, across the state of Tennessee. So we think there may be some more money. If more money comes to us, then that would only reduce what we're planning to get. But they pretty well have dictated in that first round of money what you could use it for and what you could not use it for. And I suspect
Yeah.
it'll be the same way here. Okay?
Thank you, Mayor. Nina, do you have that total yet? It's roughly 34 million. So anyone else have a question on the capital request items before us?
This is Commissioner Herbert. I have a question
ahead.
about several of the items.
All right, go
First
ahead.
one is the carpet in the courthouse. I mean, I guess it's courthouse flooring replacement. Is it got carpet there that's worn out? Is that the problem? Does anybody know?
Commissioner, this is Kevin. Yes, ma'am, that flooring has reached its lifespan, and we want to replace it with the same flooring that's on the first floor, which is a artificial veneer flooring, and it lasts a lot longer, especially the wear and tear that they have through that hallway.
Okay, that sounds good. And I have another question. This is the Sheriff's Department. It's got an Icon water system, ICON. What is that? Does anybody know?
Can you hear me, Commissioner?
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Sheriff.
Yeah, that's what I talked about the other day, is that when they flush the toilets, we can set the water to where they can only flush once an hour, can't flush as much as they want to. That's what that system is.
Okay.
We've got some of
Yeah,
that in
that is
our deal
good.
right now.
Yeah, I understand. And then the next one's for Parks and Rec. Artificial turf for the new rec center.
So
Do they
this-
not use grass on soccer fields anymore?
this is, Commissioner, this is Mayor Anderson. So this is for our Bethesda area out there. We are trying to put artificial turf so that we can use the soccer fields during the hot weather, et cetera, et cetera. It's like the football fields that are being put on with artificial turf. We can only use the soccer fields at certain times. If it rains real heavy, these people that come into town cannot use the fields because we just say no to them. So this is our venture into the artificial for our soccer fields so we can get more use out of them. Should be good for 8 to 10 years, maybe longer, depending on how long. Because of the losses of revenue, loss of the season, watering, et cetera, we're going to go with the artificial turf on this, and we need to try it somewhere. This is a good place to try it out.
Okay, Mayor, I've got one more. I imagine you can answer this one. This is the Ag Park, the sign with the LED message center. Is that a sign to be out in front of the Ag Center to tell them what events are going on?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think that's a really good idea. I think we've been needing one. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Herbert. Anyone else have any questions on the capital project request?
Commissioner Webb, if I
Go ahead.
can, Morton
Go ahead.
here, just follow up to the mayor's statement. Do we know how many fields that is down at Bethesda?
Hey, Gordon, are you on here?
Mayor, I think it's at least 4. It may be more from when I've looked at those preliminary plans. I'm not sure. It's been a few months since I've seen the plans.
Can I get back with you on that, Chaz?
Absolutely, and I can reach out to Gordon. I was just curious how many we're getting. So
Yeah.
that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
And Commissioner Morton, just to know these others, those are multi-purpose. So I don't want to step on the parks folks, but what we
Oh,
found
no.
out with the high schools is that we try to use it for soccer, football, band practice, and make it multi-purpose as well.
And lacrosse.
And lacrosse.
As I recall, there were some fields in an earlier budget that I think were probably trimmed for some of our high schools to get artificial turf. I know we've got several, and the goal is to get them to all the schools eventually. But so I'm aware of the use for it and the need for it. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else have any questions on the capital request? Seeing none, are we ready to vote? All right. This is for the county capital request of approximately $34 million as explained by Nina and the mayor. Commissioner Herbert, how do you vote?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton.
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon.
Sturgeon, aye.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Chair votes aye, pass unanimously. Thank you. The next one
Chairman
up.
Wynn?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Pardon me, it's Diane.
Yes.
I was speaking with Gordon on the phone, and there are 6 fields. 4 are one size and 2 are another size.
Thank you, Diane. Commissioner Morton, you copy on that one? Assume he did. They're very good. All right, next item on the agenda is the proposed budget summary. I think everyone's got a copy of that. I've asked the counselor to weigh in on, are we going to approve these area or in total? So Jeff, what's your opinion on that?
Well, you have to vote separately on the resolutions.
Okay.
You will have to vote you can vote for everything that's in the general fund or that consolidated budget in one vote. You may want to discuss the different areas as they may be. The special revenue funds will require separate votes because they are separate revenue sources. And then usually it finishes with the debt service. If you follow kind of the table of contents of the budget that's on the internet, that's kind of the approach, I would say. You can include the debt service in the consolidated general revenue budget, but I think the special revenue funds need to come out, and then the tax levy has to be done separately. So following those resolutions, I think will take you where you need to go.
All right. We may need some guidance as we go through. It's a lot easier doing this live than it is by virtual, but we'll work through this.
This is for the consolidated budget.
Right.
It's not the actual budget.
Okay, I don't have that document, so I don't know what that looks like. Nobody has sent me that document.
Okay, that puts Jeff at a disadvantage here.
So I'm trying to work off the entire budget, and so I apologize for interjecting some of those things, but I'm not sure what's included in the quote consolidated budget without being able to look at it.
All right, I'm gonna see you.
Jeff, and I will get you an email copy. Stand by.
All right, thank you.
Okay. While Jeff is getting that, I think we can go ahead and take a motion to approve. All the budget committee members have this. And note that this will also, by voting for this, we are approving having the public hearing on June 9th at 5:30, which will be a separate public hearing that we will, the budget committee will host. So what we're asking to do is, I'm not sure of this, Jeff, but I'm going to say that I'm going to ask the commissioners on the budget committee to approve the discussion of the proposed 2020-2021 budget. And then we will have Nina go through the line items and we'll vote on each of the categories as presented in the handout. So do I have a motion to put this on the floor?
Motion to approve the county's proposed budget for 2021.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Sturgeon, second.
Commissioner Sturgeon, second. Now then, Nina, you were going to give us a summary and then we'll look at each line item starting with, we'll start with the general fund, but you were going to give us an overall summary first, I believe. Nina?
Right, so typically what is approved is the tax rate, and I can read that off for each fund. Then all that is approved on this document is our estimated appropriated budget. So I will not be reading through each of those lines, but I can read off the proposed budget for 2021. So our tax rate does remain the same as last year. The county general fund would receive 38 cents. The solid waste sanitation fund, 6 cents. The general debt service fund, 26 cents. Rural debt service fund, 18 cents. General purpose school fund, $1.34 for a total of $2.22.
Okay, thank you. And then, Mr. Mosley, do you have that handout from Diane yet?
I do have it, and this is okay. I'm gonna change gear on you here a little bit, because what this is a spreadsheet that appears to be the notice. So you can vote on the entirety with only having to have one roll call vote. And again, you can have discussions as to the individual funds. That's not a problem, but you only need one vote for approval at this committee on this particular day. When we get to the resolutions later on in another meeting, we'll have to break those out. Does that make sense?
Okay. Well, I want to clarify so that everyone, since I have a question, what we're voting for today is the proposed budget with a tax rate of $2.22 and a public hearing on June 9th.
Correct.
Both of those. We're not actually voting on the individual line items because we've gone through that already. This committee has done that.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is your.
Can I
this is your
interject
notice
something?
to the public.
Chair Little, go ahead.
Yeah, this is the vote that you are taking is for the consolidated budget to be published in the paper with the public notice. You are not voting on the budget. You're voting on what is going to be put in the newspaper.
Right.
Thank you. But we can have, as Mr. Mosley said, if anyone has any discussions or questions, we can ask the budget committee to do that at this point. So the budget committee, does anyone have any questions? You understand from Mr. Mosley and Chair Little of the final vote will be publishing and notification of the meeting on June 9th. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, Chairman, I just want to make sure I understand.
Go ahead.
We're voting on the tax rate, not on the total dollars in the budget. Is that correct?
No, Commissioner, this is Jeff, and I had gotten confused earlier because I was looking at the budget and not this consolidated notice. When this came through, all you are voting on today is the notice, which contains this summary of the budgetary items, including tax rate, and the holding of a public hearing on June 9th. This is what will go in the paper. So all you have to do is vote on the consolidated budget, the entirety of it, and for the hearing on the 9th. So you don't have, you're not going to go in and change numbers here.
Right.
Gotcha. I just went to the bottom to look for a total, and there really isn't any totaling of all the funds. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Diane, for getting this over to Jeff to keep us within the lines, and Commissioner Little for weighing in on this. So are we ready to vote? This is on the notice of the budget public hearing on June 9th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. in the auditorium of the Williamson County Administrative Complex. Is there anything else needs to be added to that, Jeff?
No.
Thank you. Any further questions? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor of the item before us signify by saying aye. Those against signify by saying no. Commissioner Herbert, how do you vote?
Herbert, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton.
Morton, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon.
Sturgeon, aye.
Mayor Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb votes aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you for everyone weighing in on that. Mayor, do you have an update for the Budget Committee?
I think I'm going to start with Jeff today to kind of talking about two things that through him and all the city mayors, city managers, and legal staff, what we have sent up to Nashville in two different settings. One first to our representatives, and then today we followed that up with the same information going to the governor's staff. I think that would be good for Jeff to talk about because that is very important to the operations. And then when he finishes, I'll kind of round up. Also, Jeff, while you're talking, a little bit about the last executive order, unless Lisa's on here. Okay.
Yeah, Lisa's not on there. I don't believe the things that the mayor's mentioned. The first thing is that we have asked our state legislative delegation to look at an amendment of the Governmental Tort Liability Act for governments that comply with the substantially comply with the Tennessee Pledge to be given a presumption that we aren't negligent in reopening business, in reopening government, whether it's the complex or the Parks and Rec or whatever it is. As everybody's aware, how many times we've heard we're in uncertain terms, unprecedented, all those things. So it's a little difficult to establish what the standards are at any particular moment. The best guidance we have is coming out of the state. We feel like tying that to the governmental tort liability would give the governments the ability to operate efficiently, get reopened, and provide the services that they need to provide and that the citizens have come to expect. So that's really what we've put forth in terms of the delegation and gotten to the governor's office, is that idea. It is broadly supported by the counties and cities that we've talked to and the school boards that we've talked to, because there's just so much uncertainty in trying to get these things open. The other thing is we continue to have a flurry of executive orders. And of course, the main ones that we've seen, we've had reopenings of certain close contact businesses this week. And then we've also, or I guess middle of last week, and we've also had the extension of most of the licensure and administrative functions that were put in the first executive order. The executive orders really run for 60 days. So there were a number of them, whether they dealt with notaries or with licensure or trucks on the road or all of those things that were set to expire. Within a few days, there was an order that came down that extended all of those until June 30th. And then, of course, you've got another set that are set to expire at the end of the month, which are the reopening executive order that was issued that limited it to gatherings of 10, restaurants to 50%, and 6 in a party, and all of those will be coming up soon. Now, the question there's going to be some form of extension. The question's really going to be, are we going to be extended into phase 2 of the Tennessee Pledge, or are we going to be stuck in phase 1? And I think that's just going to be dependent on the numbers and what we see over the next 2 weeks. And I suspect that executive order will come out shortly after Memorial Day. So you've really got 2 tracks right now. They did not just extend all of them because they didn't need to extend that second batch that had come later in the process. But there were a bunch of them that were extended to June 30th. And I suspect, well, I'm pretty sure we're going to see an extension of the others in some form or fashion coming along as we go. There are some clarifications that are coming out. So again, this is going to be a moving target. You've got things like the reopening of recreational facilities that has been provided where we've got certain things we can't do, and then there are certain guidances that we have to look to, such as ball fields. You could theoretically have a ball field open if you have a group of less than 10, but the problem is operationally keeping those groups to less than 10 and then keeping the groups of 10 safely apart in those facilities is difficult. So there's going to be an evolution of the guidance as we go through it. Festivals and park, those kind of things are still banned. And we'll continue to see the cancellation of some of those, including the county fair was just canceled last night. And I know we've seen some other ones, Franklin on the 4th, et cetera, have been canceled. So it's going to be, we're going to have to continue to update those, but that's where we are as of this moment, unless something's come across the wire while we've been in the meeting.
Thank you, Jeff. And Paul, I'm sure everybody heard, Jeff just said it again, the fair has been canceled, along with many other festivals and activities all over our state. So we're going to continue to have people that say, well, you can, you should, or why don't you wait later in the month of June to make, or July to make your decision, because all things require planning. You don't, as Diane has often said, you don't just go out one day and unlock the building and have a fair. That's a year-long process, and a lot of people don't realize that, but they are trying to have a virtual fair put together. I continue to just be amazed, though, at the resiliency of our people that are working, all of the department heads, elected officials, and believe me, Jeff summarized it in a couple of minutes. I'll do the same, but it's hours of work to get to that point that you can summarize. I think the final thing I would say is that up until this week, we have been meeting 2 or 3 times with elected officials, appointed officials, city folks, so that we're pretty much all on the same page. And when we disagree, we vote to agree and go on. But so far, all 6 cities have been great to work with, and it just shows the willingness of when you can pull these things off. Finally, I might say it is gratifying. I know this budget committee, this is probably I'd like to think it's the only time we'll ever have to have an entire budget go through where you never meet and talk about it except online and through this virtual world. Thanks to Nina for working a lot of hard hours. There's some tough calls in that budget to get it from 60 to 30 million. There are a lot of people listening in on this phone that have worked to get it there, and I appreciate all of those workers that we've got out there to get this budget to ultimately we could not and we were not going to have a tax increase. And this budget is laid out like this, along with the school's efforts, that will allow us to have a budget next year working with the same dollars. I say that with a caveat. Earlier this week, the state sent us some preliminary numbers, and as one individual in Nashville told me, it's ugly. It's just ugly, and there's no other way to put it. So we will know more as we get back into the latter part of June before we have our July County Commission meeting. I'm comfortable with where we are today on this budget, but knowing what could come from the state or their changes to balance their budget, then I reserve the right to go back in there and call you all together and say, we may have to do something else other than what we've got here. That's it. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Of the Budget Committee, you want to have a question related to what Mr. Mosley or Mayor Anderson just spoke of? If not, just to remind everyone, our next meeting is our regularly scheduled June meeting, which will be on June 1st at 4:30 p.m. And it looks like we will do this virtually again. Is that correct, Mayor? He's shaking his head yes. So if there's no other business from anyone, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Is there anyone have any objection to adjournment? If not, we are adjourned to June 1st. Thank you very much. Good job, everybody. Yes, go ahead. Yes. Okay. Okay. The legal announcement you're talking about? And then the roll call. Okay. The commissioners, if you heard that, just bear with us for just a minute, please. This is the Budget Committee of Williamson County for May 14th, 2020. This meeting is being held pursuant to Executive Order 16, superseded by Executive Order 34, the Governor of the State of Tennessee. As such, all members of the committee must be able to hear me and each other. If you cannot hear other committee members, please notify us immediately. All votes will be done by roll call. This meeting is available to the public on Public Access TV and is streaming live on YouTube. At this point, I will call the roll of the Budget Committee. Commissioner Herbert.
Herbert here.
Thank you. Commissioner Morton.
Morton here.
Thank you. Commissioner Sturgeon.
Sturgeon here.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson.
Here.
Thank you.
Anderson here.
Thank you. And Chairman Webb is here. All members of the Budget Committee are present. We have no minutes and we do have a transfer. And I'll stop right there. Creed, does that get you caught up? Thank you. Thank you, Budget Committee members, for standing by for an extra minute. We are adjourned. See you all June 1st. Thank you very much.